All right, just before we jump into today's episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Katana. Now, I know a lot of you are selling on Shopify, Amazon, wholesale, retail, and sometimes all at once. And, once you're on more than a couple of channels, keeping inventory accurate gets genuinely hard, and that's where Katana fits in. Stock syncs automatically across every channel and every location, all in real time. So there's no spreadsheets, there's no manual reconciliation, none of the setup overhead of a traditional ERP. Now, you can try it for free right now at katanamrp.com. That's katanamrp.com. All right, let's jump into today's episode.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
All right, well, welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt. Now, today's conversation is all about, I think, Shopify brands that should be expanding into like Amazon, Walmart, and maybe even TikTok shops. Really trying to do that without burning margins, or even their team, even their sanity in a lot of this process. And so there's a pattern that I keep watching. And I know this pattern, being inside Shopify for so long, when people expand out, I believe that this is what happens. Like a brand usually hits some traction on their Shopify brand, maybe $1 million a year, maybe even up to $10 million a year. But I think someone, typically a marketer in the room, usually says, hey, we should be on Amazon. And next thing you know, they know we should be on Walmart. Or, hey, the young people are buying on TikTok shops right now. And then what's interesting, and what this happens a lot, and I think this is where my guest is going to help me unpack a lot of this, but this is what typically happens is they go and hire like a PPC freelancer in one place, or they get some kind of listing person over here. They hire a designer overseas, and, even the fulfillment partner for all of this doesn't even talk to anybody, doesn't know what's going on. And so, and 6 months later, revenue's probably up because you expanded out into another marketplace. But, profit a lot of times is flat, or, the team is very dysfunctional. I'm not saying fried, but, literally there can be a lot of burnout. And the big thing is nobody can really answer a simple question. Like, where are we actually making money? And I think that's where my guest, Saad Khan from a company, he's actually the founder and CEO of a company called Spectrum BPO. And you can see them. I'll have the link in the show notes. So it's spectrumbpo.com. Saad really started his company, I believe, I'll hear the story in a moment, but he started, I believe, back in 2017, had a very small team. This is the kind of guy that's actually been in the trenches in the early days of actually being an operator. And I'm hoping today that we're going to learn a lot about what it means to actually run a store and then make I'd say an incredible pivot over to the fact that they're not an agency partner now that is very typical that you see a lot, where they're more consult and then kind of reporting. Their whole business model is all around the execution and the integration. And I think accountability, is the key, a true business partner. So I'd like to welcome Saad to the show.
Thank you so much, for such a nice introduction, Steve. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. So it is true. When I did some work on LinkedIn today, just to kind of figure out what is your backstory, and you clearly were an operator, a business owner, actually in direct to consumer, and so it's great. Can you talk a little bit about those early days of deciding entrepreneurship was for you and wanting to get involved in e-commerce?
So I would like to take you back, like 2008 or 2009. I actually started working on the e-commerce, where I was mostly doing drop shipping on eBay and a little bit on the Amazon as well. Amazon was not that popular during those time and all that. Everybody was on eBay. So I used to, sell different stuff. And at the same time, I was able to figure out a couple of products that were doing really good. And, there was a time, I need some external help. Obviously, I was not in a position where I can hire in-house people in the US. So that was the very first time, when I had a chance to work, with an offshore team of like 2 to 3 people, who I used to work with, and we were able to do a lot of things together in the coming years and all that stuff. But I think that experience, turned out really well. And what I did was in the nearby areas in Dallas, especially, all the small businesses that I know. I, connected them to the people offshore where obviously they were getting, a lot of services done and, at a fraction of a cost and all that. So, anyways, I kept on doing all this stuff for like so many years, and obviously I was successful as well. I was doing a couple of things, and I exited few successful businesses as well. But obviously the offshore team kept on increasing. They were working on my projects, and I know a few people in the nearby. They were also helping them. In 2015, probably that was the time when I started thinking seriously, why don't, I start offering, services to different brands who are struggling, on various marketplaces like eBay, Amazon, and Walmart. Because that was the point I actually knew that if, if you have a dedicated team that's integrated, I mean, you can do a lot better. Because a lot of people I know, they had freelancers, but they had one, Amazon expert, somebody looking after the ads, the other one is looking at the content or graphics and all that. But the real problem was that the small business owners, when they have to manage a team of like 3, 4 people working in different locations and all that, it becomes a mess. A lot of your time is being consumed in the management rather than focusing on the growth and all that. So the idea was that why don't we create an agency that can turn out to be a one-stop solution for all the struggling brands that are looking to expand their business online. So, Spectrum as a brand was started in 2017, but before starting Spectrum, I was already working with, 4 or 5 different brands, and I was consulting them, and my small team was actually looking after all those brands and pretty much taking care of all the aspects, whatever are needed. But in 2017, obviously, we formed our own brand with the name Spectrum. And the idea was that initially all the brands, most probably small brands that are struggling to scale on the marketplaces, will be a one-stop solution to them so that they should only focus on the growth and all the day-to-day operations will be handed over. I mean, will be taken care by Spectrum. So
Right.
that idea turned out, I mean, really strong. I mean, in the first year, we were able to grab, more than a dozen clients, and that journey, continued till today. And we're working, with thousands, I mean, more than 1,000 brands till to date. And currently, we are handling a little over 200 brands with the help of in-house 400 experts. Obviously, that journey was not that easy. We had to go through a lot of thick and thin, but eventually we were able to, scale our idea. And I think the best part was when we claim that we are a one-stop solution. So we really are. Right from your fulfillment requirements to your daily, operational needs. I mean, whether it's related to, your ads, your optimizations, your graphics, content, catalogs. I mean, pretty much everything is being taken care by Spectrum. And the best part is that we offer, all these services under one roof. So what we do is obviously, I always tell clients that one single person, no matter how good he or she is, cannot be an expert of everything because a lot of
That's true.
people a lot of clients that we were working with, they used to work with freelancers whom they think are experts, what they call Amazon experts or Walmart experts.
Right.
But the way these platforms have evolved, over the years, I mean, there are a lot of expertise that are required in order to execute a successful operation.
For sure.
So here at Spectrum, we execute project, in form of a team. Although an expert is allocated based on requirement, but there's a full team working on a single project. For example, if you're taking care of the entire operations of your Amazon store, obviously it requires an a PPC expert who's looking after the ads and optimizations. Obviously, a lot of work needs to be done on the graphics side, content side, and the catalogs as well. So what we do is obviously we have all these experts in-house that have years and years of experience, and we have developed these experts over the years. We don't hire any people from the market. The biggest challenge when we were growing Spectrum was the human resource. Obviously, in the Pakistani market, there were no trained people. Although a lot of people claim that they are trained, but they have done these online courses and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So
Yeah.
what we did different, that actually, is I would say is the primary reason of our success. Although it was really hard to do that, but we somehow did that. And that was that instead of hiring experts or anybody who have a slight knowledge of e-commerce, what we did was that we started hiring fresh graduates from the market, regardless of the fact, what their education is. If they are interested in learning e-commerce, we started training them in house. We designed a complete, I would say, an in-house course of training them where we used to teach them, through all the tutorials and the stuff that we have created. And at the same time, obviously, we had a lot of clients already, and at the same time, they were doing the practical as well. So for the good 6 months, Spectrum invest on their people. During those 6 months, they're working as assistants to the experts, and they're juggling between different projects so that they have some experience before they are in a position to fully manage any of our client or project. So that was something that turned out really well. And over the years, obviously, we have trained hundreds and hundreds of people. And all these 400 plus in-house experts that we claim work with us, obviously, a lot of people has left us as well in the past,
Uh-huh.
but majority of the people, that we have trained are with us till to date. And we are one of the very few companies that the entire management of more than 50 plus people in Spectrum, most of them are with us for the last 8 to 10 years now.
Right.
And the reason is that the kind of trust and that we've given to our people that has forced them to stay with us.
Yeah.
So this is something that we think was phenomenal, and everybody that comes to me, I mean, the major issue with any agency is that how do you retain your people? And one thing that I
Yeah.
I would like to add, which is very important, because I know almost all the fellow agencies who are doing good, but Spectrum differentiates, itself with any other agency because 90% of the agencies in the market, they don't have their in-house team. Either they're working with the freelancers or they have any white label partner. And by the way,
Yeah.
Spectrum is taking care of more than 1 dozen agencies that are pure US based,
Mm.
but we are working with them as a white label. Pretty much everything has been taken care by Spectrum. Obviously, we don't disclose our identity in front of their clients,
Fair enough.
and obviously the idea that Spectrum puts in the market, we don't take any agency as our competitor, because the kind of services and the kind of affordable services we offer, it's very hard for any agency, to offer the same quality and the pricing, especially that we offer. And the clear reason for that is that again, we have our own in-house people. We have the projects or not, we have to pay our people. So we are not dependent 100%. And obviously that gives us a luxury as well, to operate in a way we should. And in most of the cases, as I said, that majority of the agencies are either working with the freelancers or third party partners. So I mean, everybody in the e-commerce world, I mean, we are always open to the collaborations and all that, and that's what we're doing for with a lot of other companies as well.
Right. Yeah, it's an amazing story. I love that. I think at the end of the day, it's just like that's what Shopify was all about too. Was they would hire early grads also, and the thing was they always had a thing called the lifestyle story, and what it was it really wasn't talking about like it was just like the decisions that you made in your life leading up to why we're talking today and potentially getting hired by Shopify. They were trying to understand the why behind everything. Oh, you did this. Why did you do that? And they kind of really get into the psychology of the person, and they find out if they have a growth mindset or not. Is the glass half full or half empty? And they just talk about all that because I think figuring that out I think is quite helpful. I know we had these mantras all the time. I know we're going off on a tangent here, but there was some really good mantras about being like merchant obsessed or thriving on change or being a constant learner and kind of building for the long term. It's these sorts of things. I still remember them to this day because those were important things as a human, at least from Shopify's perspective. Well, that would be a great employee if you're actually okay to thrive on change and you're okay to be a constant learner. And I think that's why Shopify is and was so successful. And that sounds like you've taken that same kind of mindset.
I agree to whatever you just said. Exactly, the main idea is obviously in our scenario, people are the ones who actually drive the success of the company. And as much as we focus on our clients, the same focus is on employees as well. We make sure that their growth is intact, and with the passage of time, the company grows. They are also growing with us. And as I said, 100% of the people that we have, they are being trained by Spectrum. When they came to us, they had no idea about the e-commerce. All they knew was that, yeah, we have heard about Amazon, we have
Yeah.
heard about Walmart, and we were the ones who we actually trained them right from scratch. And it's not about only bookish training. We made sure that they're doing the practical, uh, right away. So this is how we actually trained our people, and then eventually they turned out to be champions of Spectrum. And at the moment we are handling every type of clients, right from small companies to medium size, and at the same time we have some big fishes as well that are doing like close to, a little over 5 million per month, just on these marketplaces.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing.
obviously, the kind of exposure we have working with hundreds and hundreds of clients over the years, obviously, we are in a position to execute any kind of project. And I think
Yeah.
there is hardly any category left that we haven't worked with.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's interesting. Just I kind of did some early research kind of before recording today, and I went to your LinkedIn, and I know you talk a lot about how brands don't typically have a traffic problem. It's really more about clarity and execution. And I'm just using your own words here. Like, can you unpack that a bit? Because someone listening right now, let's suppose, I don't know, they're doing like 500K a month on their Shopify store because my guess is most founders right now in that kind of scenario, they're convinced that they just need to spend more money on ads to acquire, net new customers. And kind of, what's your thought on that right now when they want to grow and all they think is it's just, I need more budget for ads?
Right. First of all, we have brought a lot of clients from Shopify to Amazon and Walmart. And whatever you
Okay.
just said, I slightly, disagree with a lot of, stuff that is going on in the market. It's not like that you have to be dependent on the ads,
Hmm.
all the time.
Right.
Yes, in the beginning, if you're struggling with sales, your listings are not optimized and you're not showing up, obviously you need, and in order to get some visibility, yes, we do push the ads in the beginning, but right from day one, the idea that we sell to our clients is that eventually after every passing month, the idea is that we should control the spend in case we are, increasing the spend, but you will see a significant increase in your sales.
Right.
So the conversion will be better. But again, the main idea is that, the strategy should not be focused purely on the ad spend. And the primary thing is, especially when you're working on the multiple marketplaces, there should be a synergy or integration, among all these channels, and the right people should be working. In our case, for example, if a client is working on Walmart, eBay, Amazon, dedicated teams, who are experts of their areas work on them. It's not like that one person is also looking after eBay, he's also looking after Amazon and other marketplaces as well. So first of all, the right people are working on these marketplaces who have years experience. They have years of experience handling all these platforms and all that. So I think the traffic is not that issue. Most of the people are able to get that, but everything is not integrated the right way. That's why they're struggling. And again, there's misconceptions in the market that you need to keep on increasing the ad spend and all that. That's not true. If your listings are properly optimized, your A plus content is good, and you keep on optimizing your listings on a regular basis because the traffic keeps on fluctuating on certain keywords after every few
Right.
days or maybe weeks. So there should be somebody who's looking after that on a regular basis. If you are doing all the basic stuff on a regular, in a regular way, I think a lot of stuff can be resolved. And obviously, in order to further push your sales, we do spend, but the focus is not entirely on the ad spend.
Right.
So that's what we teach as our client. And obviously, if you're managing the campaigns in the right way and you're monitoring them on the regular basis, obviously you can control a lot of ad spend that is being done on, it's wasted actually.
Yeah.
And that's what we do because in a lot of cases when the clients are onboarded with us, for example, if they're spending 10,000, the very next month their ad spend is reduced to 20 to 30% because the audit our team does and the stuff that we evaluate initially, in most of the cases, a lot of ad spend is being wasted. So first of all, we just made sure that at least there should be no leaking or wastage on the ad spend, and then we see that what's working, what's not. But again, the main thing that I would like to tell the audience is that the integration, between all these channels is very important, and you should have the right knowledge of what actually you're doing. Obviously, the idea of all platforms is the same, but the execution is different. So you need
Right.
to understand that.
Yeah. Interesting too. I know I've had some other people that are trying to break into Amazon, and one of the things they find a little bit frustrating is just the dynamic nature of pricing that happens on Amazon, especially in commodity products. And I know that there are some processes and even some AI tools out there that maybe dynamically changing pricing to be competitive up or down, just based on profitability. And so, what's your thought on that? And the Amazon ad side is interesting, and that definitely gives more awareness pretty high up based on keywords and things like that. If you're not there in the buy box kind of organically, but then on the pricing and dynamic pricing nature of Amazon, it can be quite frustrating, I tell you, for many sellers. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, actually, it varies from product to product, from category to category. It depends what type of product you are selling. So it's very
Yeah.
hard to give any single statement unless you look at the product and,
Yeah.
and the market saturation and all that stuff.
Right.
But I think, it's very important. Obviously, the dynamics are changing every single day. If you are taking care of your stuff wisely, so I think a lot of problems can be resolved, by wisely handling all your stuff. And we have a lot of clients that are selling on a much higher price than their competitors are selling, and still they're grabbing a good number of sales just because their branding is really
Brand.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people doesn't focus on that, and one thing that they do is they keep on changing their infographics all the time, So it's a kind of stuff that they keep on engaging their audience.
Yeah.
But one thing that the branding, obviously, it's a really important component of your product. And one thing that I missed, that once, when somebody comes to us, obviously we do a very detailed audit. It took, hours and hours, to execute that audit before we decide whether we need to onboard that client or not.
Right.
Because in our case, obviously we are not a new agency. We are already in the market for almost a decade. Obviously, we want to work with those clients which we think we can add value to them.
Right.
It's not just about onboarding clients and all that. And if you go online and see our reputation, you'll find us that obviously we have worked really hard, to maintain our reputation. And one of the primary reason is that we are very picky when we onboard
Yeah.
our clients. And initially, we used to work with all types of clients and all that, especially with the beginners. And one thing, that we have observed a lot, especially with the newbies, that they want everything to be done, by a third party partner. Okay, we have identified a product, you should help us in the sourcing as well, and pretty much of doing each and every aspect. And I used to say to them, then what you will do? It's better I can launch this. If I have to do everything on your behalf and you have done nothing, So in our case, what we prefer is that we work with clients that are at least doing 40 to 50K per month. So that's the minimum requirement.
Right.
In this case, that means that's the first indicator that you have achieved at least something on your own. And now, with our expertise and experience, the idea is to take you to the next level.
Mm.
And the model that we offer to our clients is, and there's one thing very interesting that I would like to tell you, and I think there is no other company on planet at the moment that is offering this.
Okay.
We don't, we don't ask for any upfront payment to our clients. It's a post payment plan. We will be working with you dedicatedly on whatever package you have decided with us.
Mm-hmm.
We will work with you for one full month. After end of the month, if you are satisfied, with our work quality, with our ethics, you can go ahead and pay us. And in case you are not, I mean, you are free to go. We'll not ask you to pay us.
Right. Wow.
So I don't know any agency, any company that works for you, and then after a month of service, they ask you for money.
Right.
And the reason is obviously we are confident enough of whatever we have done in the past, and as I said, working with hundreds of clients, with active hundreds of clients already, it gives us a luxury.
Yeah.
So we can do that, and the reason, one of the primary reasons is also that our experts are all in-house. They are our own people.
Right.
So we have ample trust on our abilities and expertise. So that's something, and that's why before onboarding any client, we do hours and hours of research, in the audit phase and all that, whether we will be in a position, to add value to the project, because in most of the cases, the products are not good enough. So
Right.
it's not about only onboarding client for a month or two or three. And we have like dozens and dozens of clients that are with us for years and years. They started with us when they were doing 20, 30,000, and now they are like doing 300, 400K per month. And so that's the kind of success. And one more thing, that the pricing structure that we offer is so low that, I mean, it's affordable to anybody, whether you're a beginner who is just thinking about launching a brand, can
Mm-hmm.
easily afford us,
Right.
because the real money Spectrum makes is from your growth.
Right.
For example, if you come to us and you're doing 50,000 a month, and we have like three, four different models that we work on based on the requirement, what's needed. For example, the maximum plan that we offer is like maybe 16, $1,700 per month, in which we are handling your content, your graphics, your optimizations, your catalogs, and all that stuff. And the real money that we make is from the growth. For example, you came to me, you're doing 50,000, and the moment we have showed a growth to you, for example, after 2 months you're doing 70,000 a month. So for the additional 20,000, that we have generated with our efforts and all that, so we charge between 1.5% to 2% on that,
Right.
because the idea is to take every potential brand or client to its full potential, so that
Right.
we can make real money out of it, and obviously, the client will be doing the same.
I do appreciate the performance marketing side of it, because I think I agree with you on that. Is it's nice to have in the early month, the first month, and not having any costs. That's a very interesting model, and so that's kind of a no brainer for those that are listening right now. If you have a little bit of traction right now, but you're not on Amazon or not doing well, or you do want to expand into Walmart or eBay, it sounds like you have a great opportunity. One thing that I want to make a comment on, and I think, and it's a slight pivot, because I think this is important, because when people want to expand into marketplaces from their Shopify store, one of the complaints I get a lot is finding accurate attribution, because it's weird when you, and I know the answers to all of this, but I want to hear your idea around this, is that you look at Shopify's analytics, or you go into Google Analytics or Meta, I don't know, TikTok, wherever, these platforms, and you know this just as well as anybody, they tend to inflate their ROAS, the return on ad spend, very in favor of themselves. And I'm talking to a lot of brands right now, and they on paper the ROAS looks really high, but when you actually look at, there's a word like contribution margin, or what's actually hitting your bank account, the reality is that it's very different. And so knowing this attribution problem, like what's leaking here actually, because I think there's a bigger picture here that I think needs to be discussed about attribution and contribution margin and just the overall profitability of a campaign when you choose to expand in these marketplaces.
I think, again, that varies product to product, but I think if you have done your homework well, or
Mm-hmm.
if you are consulting any third partner, like in our case, we exactly know that, what will be the profitability if we know the real numbers and all that. And obviously
Okay.
we know all the slightly gray areas, I would say, that obviously a newbie couldn't find them. That, okay, what would be the ad spend? What would be actual charges? What will be the FBA fees and all that stuff? So I think, if we have the real numbers, we are in a much better position, to guide our clients that, hey, whether it will be profitable and not. And obviously, there are a lot of different tools that we use to make sure that there is no leakage and the numbers are accurate. And obviously the data, the online data that is available, although it varies, but obviously we have our own mechanism that we follow. It's not dependent on any singular thing. We have like different ways to do that. But I think, if we have the real numbers, we are in an accurate position to guide our clients, that so there is nothing, which is left behind, that they think, they are not making real money. Obviously, the margins are shrinking over time just because of the saturation
Yeah.
and the competition and all that. But yeah, that can be controlled. We have a lot of clients that are doing really good in terms of profitability, but one should actually know, the major issue that a lot of clients face, they don't reconcile anything. They have no idea, what they are spending, what they are making. And even, in the reimbursements that they get, they have no idea about the reimbursements on all that. That they need to take against the missing units or the damaged
Right.
units.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of our clients, before coming to us, and when, we started reconciling their accounts and all that, trust me, we have refunded thousands and thousands of dollars, that were pending on the marketplace side, and we were able to reimburse that. And in most of the cases, they don't even know how to do that. Obviously, that's something that requires a little time and all that. So, but if you do your things in a right way, I think it's manageable. But yes, that's true that due to the saturation, margins are shrinking. But if you have a
Mm-hmm.
good product, we have a lot of clients that are really successful on the wholesale model, and at the same time, a lot of our clients are doing really well in the private label as well. And during all those years, we had the privilege to launch, hundreds of brands. I don't claim that every brand was successful. The success rate was like maybe 10 to 20%. And in most of the cases, obviously, right from day one, client were aware, because in our case, when client comes to us, the product is ready and they're like good to go, everything is sorted, and we had no option left other than to launch that product. But now, in the last couple of years, obviously, we avoid to work with the newbies, unless if somebody comes to us and they have a very good product. It's a research product or any product, that has a lot of innovation and all that, and our team thinks that yes, the chances are bright. Obviously, there are no guarantees and all that stuff. If we think chances are bright, we will be, we are good to go with that particular brand. And as I said, obviously, that's why we prefer to work with already partially established brands or companies that have done at least something, at least 40 to 50,000 worth of sales every month. And yes, with our expertise, now is the time that in these cases we are 90% sure. If we can't double the sales, at least we can increase the sales to 40 to 50% based on our expertise. Obviously, a brand has only a exposure of working with their own products or maybe a handful of products, and a company like us who have worked with tons and thousands of products with with hundreds of brands. Obviously, there's a lot we can do on their part, which can significantly boost their sales just by tweaking certain things that they are not doing already.
Yeah.
And as I
Sky's the
said,
limit.
the focus is entirely on the growth of the clients. That's why our models, the pricing models that starts from like 600 bucks a
Mm,
month up to a maximum of like 1700,
right.
unless you need multiple people, to handle your operations. Obviously, I mean, we have a lot of clients that, where we have allocated 15 to 20 people, but there are huge accounts
Right.
that are doing, millions, multiple millions in a single month. So that requires a lot of effort and expertise in that case. I mean, in those cases, we put multiple resources to handle all the entire day-to-day operation and all that. And as I told you in the beginning, obviously we have our own logistics center as well, in Dallas. We are based, by the way, we are based in Dallas,
Hmm.
Dallas, Texas,
Right.
with an offshore in Pakistan, and we have a branch office in UAE as well. So we have a logistics center where we offer prep services only to our clients. These prep services are not for those companies that are not taking our, services. So only your client, only your existing clients, in case they're struggling with their fulfillments and all that, so we can help them as well. So that's why, we are in a position to claim that we are a true one-stop solution.
We're going to talk a bit about AI right now because I think obviously it's the elephant in the room, and we know that there are a lot of different tools and things. But we'll talk about like the Shopify side for a second, and then want to kind of pivot into what Amazon is doing through Rufus and stuff. But it's interesting because I think in March, Shopify kind of activated this agentic storefront, they call it, by default now, which I think every store means that the merchant can now be listed inside ChatGPT or Google AI mode or whatever. I think Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, and so that's interesting. A lot of brands don't even realize. I wrote about this recently. A lot of brands there was no fanfare. It just turned it on by default for American customers, right? And so, and I think you've written a little bit about this too, but I don't think it's a keyword problem. I think it's overall a structure problem, like how people get cited and noted and linked to from within these chat solutions. But then on the flip side, there's this walled garden going on. So first of all, Amazon is not involved in any of this. This whole agentic storefront thing, or this universal commerce protocol thing they have now, that Shopify is trying to own the whole commerce protocol. Google's fully involved. They co-developed this thing, but Amazon wants nothing to do with this universal commerce protocol. They want nothing to do with But so they have their own AI solution, this Rufus. So what's your comment on both sides? These Shopify brands and their discoverability now instantly, but are they really being found correctly? Is there structured data? Are there titles and descriptions and schema? Is it all organized correctly for discoverability in these chat solutions? But then what is Amazon doing as it relates to Rufus? Is that a whole different bet that they're trying to help people through their chat solution to find product?
I mean, that's a really good question and a tricky as well. I
I know.
mean, AI
It's tricky.
is been crazy. I mean, and in the last 2, 3 years, we are working a lot, on exploring the AI tools. In fact, we have created a lot of AI tools in the last 2, 3 years.
Oh,
Previously,
lovely.
either we were using third-party tools
Mm.
or we were dependent on the Google Sheets or Excel sheets, but we have automated a lot of processes, in the last couple of years. And then on what I have ascertained that if your products are well structured everywhere, for example, if you're doing good on your website, you're doing SEO and all these stuff in the right way, and I think that's the best way to be found on the AI tools and all that. Obviously, in the last I would say a year or two, everything is being automated, and regardless of the fact they disclose or not, I mean, in the back end, everybody's after that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is trying to automate things, and there's a
Yeah.
race going on that who's
Yes.
going to come
It's
first
true.
and all that. So this is something which is never ending. But we figured out few things that we implemented in Spectrum as well. If you go to our site, obviously if you ask Chat GPT or Claude or maybe what's the other
Gemini.
one,
Yeah.
Gemini, yeah,
Hmm.
Gemini. So at times if you take, for example, if you ask ChatGPT, tell me the best, maybe top five companies, who are providing Amazon services. At times, Spectrum pops up. At times, it's not. So I think the entire data that is coming to these AI tools are from the search engines, of course. So I think the if you are well structured everywhere and you're placed rightly, on different platforms, chances are high that your visibility on the AI platforms will
Mm-hmm.
become more because the database is the same. The data that the AI tools, they are getting either from the Google, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
or all the similar platforms. But
Mm-hmm.
again, there are a lot of things that will be unfold in the coming months or years,
Yeah.
maybe. And I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
never-ending game, and there is no concrete answer to that as well. Everybody is exploring. Every single day there is something new, and you start thinking that what's going on in the market, and there is no end to it, by the way. There
Right.
is no end to it. And yeah, the biggest, I think, hit is a lot of jobs have become obsolete. That's
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I think the customer support will no longer be needed in the coming years. Software
Right.
developers, I think, it will be completely obsolete.
Yeah.
So I think, let's wait and see, and I think the people or the companies who are already working, on these AI channels or tools, I think they are on the right track. That the future is with the AI, and that's why Spectrum has an in-house software development department that is not open for the clients because there is a lot of R&D going on in-house.
Mm-hmm.
And the core idea is to automate everything possible so that we are, I mean, less dependent on any third party tool. And because obviously now a lot of stuff, which was complicated before, I mean, you can figure all these things out from AI and all that. And that's what we are doing as well, in house. But maybe, if we were able to develop something really cool, obviously, we would love to open that for the clients as well.
Right. It's interesting you mentioned about the I'll kind of close the chapter quickly on this AI thing, but when you talk about like Gemini, like Google itself, and the AI overviews that come up in Google search, and I agree with you that the reasons why those citations come up is because of the top 10 organic listings. Forget that that's where Gemini's getting its information from because it's a Google property, and same as the AI overviews. There's some similarities of what's going on the organic search side of it. So when people say, that SEO is dead, SEO is not dead. There's still all the basic on-page and off-page metrics that are important. But what's opening up people's mind is that it's not always just about going to Google or Gemini. ChatGPT and Claude, for example, they don't scrape Google's top 10 results for their results. Their training is coming on this generative engine optimization, this GeoWord, or this AEO, answer engine optimization. These are things where they're crawling, they're looking at structured data, it's brand signals, expertise and authoritativeness and stuff, and that's how they're able to get it. So I agree with you, it's a moving target right now. It's so
Yeah,
complicated.
and one thing that I would like to add, and I'm sorry if I interrupted you,
No,
that
no,
SEO is not obsolete, but yeah, the
no.
way SEO has changed a lot. It's more focused towards the content, and I have observed myself
Hmm.
that the products that have a really good content, and AI fetches that from the blogs that you post, against your products and all that, because a lot of data, the AI, search engines fetch from those blogs that are published
Right,
on various places and all that.
right.
So SEO is more about the content these days rather than the old techniques of backlinks and all that stuff. Although it's important, but I think the main focus should be on the content side
Yeah, absolutely.
if you're doing the SEO and all that.
So I know, I know, I want to put this AI to bed, but like, where do you think everything is headed? I know you're saying it's kind of a wait and see, but AI really is reshaping a lot of things. The whole discovery part, being discovery on Amazon through Rufus and their own kind of AI tool to help people find. Rufus is really an interesting beast on its own right now because it is a conversational shopping assistant, but it's different than keywords. I think it really understands context better than anybody. It's different than other tools, but like 12 months out, like what's happening? Because you think about fulfillment is changing, and the multi-channel is shifting right now in real time, like overall. And even Shopify now, like brands are starting to pay attention that it's really important to kind of be everywhere. But then how do you how do you make decisions on which AI tools you can leverage and what's you get ROI out of?
Right. So I think I would still say that, I mean, it's very hard to say, anything concrete, but yes, we're like 12 months down the road, what I can think is that people will ask, hey, I need to buy this,
Yeah,
where I can get the best price with the best quality. And they will tell whether you need to buy from Shopify, Amazon, Walmart, eBay, TikTok. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. So everything will be dependent, on AI for sure. The kind of stuff that is happening in the AI domain for sure. And I think that all these channels, at the back end, a lot of stuff because is happening because every other day, we see a new AI feature that gets integrated, and things become different and all that. And I think if you're well connected with all these things, so that's the right way to move forward. And that's we are focused, as well. If we think that we can improve anything, any process with the help of AI, we are fully open to that. We are
Hmm.
exploring all the
Hmm.
time. And
Yeah,
that's what I suggest to everyone else as well, because, if you want to, stay on top, that's very important.
yeah. So before we kind of wrap up for today, like I've learned a lot. I mean, you can't see, but I'm on. I always joke on the show, but I'm on page 2 of notes, and that's an important episode when you're writing a lot of notes as you're recording. And I think what's interesting for me, what I've learned, and I'm going to pass the torch to you in a second. I've learned that I think there is a lot of fragmentation that is going on in a lot of different areas. I think we described a little bit about some of these challenges that are out there. Whether it be on the Amazon or the Walmart or eBay, Etsy, who knows? I think even like these agency partners that are listening to that maybe because you mentioned that you have a white label option. What do you think some of the next steps are? Because there's almost 3 different types of people listening right now. There's the early stage people that are maybe just trying to get traction on their own with their Shopify store, and they haven't quite figured out or done the work yet to get into Amazon or eBay or Etsy. They haven't done that yet. But then there's people that are firmly entrenched in the mid market that are upwards of 500 grand a year. They're doing their 50 grand a month is, can you say, your sweet spot as a starting point. And then we have these agency partners that are looking to expand where their expertise is, maybe through a strategic partner like yourself. So can we talk about those 3 different buckets and then kind of some next steps?
Yeah, see, one thing is very clear, and I tried my best to explain as well. Being a business owner, first of all, you need to think is that if you're working on the multiple marketplaces, no matter whatever they are, first of all, you need to understand that you cannot be an expert yourself of
Right.
all these platforms. Yes, you
Yeah.
can have good knowledge. You're being a business owner, you're always, in a frame of mind to explore different options, and you try your best to improve all these things. But at any point of time, you need a partner, a third party partner or experts. Obviously, being a mid-size entrepreneur, you cannot afford these expertise in-house. So you need to, engage a third party partner that can assist you. And obviously that's what we do, and again, the idea is that the focus should truly be on your growth. So that's why, we create a win-win situation. And for those people who are newbies and all that, for them, I think obviously there are a lot of companies in the market that are open to work with the newbies. At times we do as well if we think that the product is really good and all that, because regardless of the fact we claim online that we only work with companies that are doing 50,000 a month, every day we get a lot of queries from the people who are, in the initial phase of their business and all that. So at times we ask them to tell us about the product and all that. And if we think that makes sense to us, we go ahead, talk to them and start working on the audit and see if it can create any sense to both of us and all that. But
Right.
again, if you're a newbie, the idea should be, to focus on whatever is happening on these marketplaces and build your knowledge. But eventually you need somebody to assist. As I told you that there are like so many different areas that are involved, it becomes very hard for a business owner to be equally good in all those areas. So you need,
Mm-hmm.
external help. Maybe,
Yeah.
in the beginning, and then you think that I can manage myself. Fair enough. You can do that yourself. You think that
Yeah.
now you're in a position. And what I've experienced that a lot of failures are just because that obviously they got to know from someone he's doing really good on eBay that when they started selling on eBay they had no idea about the product or any background knowledge and all that. So I think you should be well prepared when you are planning to launch or execute your business on the e-commerce especially. And obviously, the market is not that it used to be, a few years back. It's very competitive. I'm not discouraging anyone, but at the same time, all I want is that the people should do the due diligence before entering the market. And at any point of time, you will be, needing a third party partner for that. And because in case, I mean, if you think that you don't need it, I would suggest that at least they should consult, regardless of the fact they work with them or not, at least you'll get to know a lot of new things and all that,
Yeah.
that might be missing in your operations.
It's interesting when you talk about like domain expertise, and I think that's the thing that hits home with kind of what Spectrum is all about. Because I always joke that a lot of founders are kind of a jack of all trades, but they're kind of a master of none. And I think that's where you kind of fit into that mix, where you have domain expertise, you have mastered or continue to learn and grow and expand by channel, but you're all in house, so there's some communication. There's no silos. There's only silos in the domain expertise, but they're still talking to other parts of your organization overall. And I think that's a great
Exactly.
strategy to have.
Yeah, even myself, I mean, working in the e-commerce domain since 2008, 2009, I cannot claim that I know everything. And
Oh, ditto,
especially
ditto.
during in the last couple of years, I'm more into the management and all that stuff. My guys, who work in the operations, they have a lot of knowledge than I can give to the listeners and all that. But at the same time, I would like to repeat that, and you just said as well that nobody can become jack of all trades, and that's not the right way to do it. And in our case, as I told, that we execute projects in form of teams. We allocate the most relevant expert, obviously, and then all the other stuff related to graphics, contents, catalogs, I mean, research work, it's been done by the real experts that have a background about all these things. So
This is amazing.
and that's why we think we are successful. And all those expertise are clubbed under one plan instead of hiring those people separately. We sell packages, and these are based on the hours. So this is how it works, right from 599 bucks per month up to 1599 or 1699 bucks. That's these are the packages that we offer. And again, I would repeat that the real money that we make is from your growth.
No, I love that. Well, this has been amazing. I have learned, like I said, a lot. I appreciate you taking time to come on and talking about your story and talking about the service you offer. It's definitely a needed service in the marketplace right now. I think a lot of founders are wearing and marketers are wearing a lot of hats. And if you're looking to scale up your business, it's worth a conversation with Spectrum. I'll put everything in the show notes. There's quite a few case studies you have. There'll be something that will resonate with you for sure. And they really understand what they can do to be a business partner to help you without being this fragmented outsourcer thing. It's all from within house. And I do really appreciate that. That's kind of how you run your business. And I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for all the kind words, and thank you so much for the invite on your show. Uh, thank you. Thank you so much, Steve.
All right. Have yourself a great afternoon.
You.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.